Hi guys, we're going to talk today about passive and active voice. Hopefully you have read the two blog posts that I've got on today's meeting, and you've read pages 633 to 635 in the book. It gives you a good idea of the difference between passive and active voice. You probably have never thought about this before. We speak in these different voices often, but one way is more effective. Sometimes that's the active voice. Sometimes the passive voice is necessary. Today I just want to practice straight out the difference between the two. Alright, so let's look first at exercise 6, and we're just determining whether the sentence is active or passive. So we look at number 1. The album was not reviewed by most critics. So if you look at subject and verb here, album and then reviewed or was reviewed. The album is not doing the reviewing. Somebody else in the sentence is. Okay, so that's how we know it's passive. And if you think about the term passive, that's what it means. It's just sort of sitting there allowing the verb to happen to it. So that's what we mean by passive. So number 1 is a passive voice sentence. Number 2, the student body elects the student or the council president. Student body is the subject, the verb is elects, subject is doing verb, this is active. And the active voice is a more typical way of looking at subject and verb. Even when we talk about differentiating between subject and verb, we're often saying what is the subject doing to determine the verb, or what is doing the verb to determine the subject. But every once in a while you don't have an answer to that question, and a lot of times it's a passive voice sentence that's causing you not to be able to figure it out. Okay, number 3. Angelo's courageous act prevented a tragedy. The act, subject, it prevented, that's active. Number 4, W.C. Handy composed the famous jazz classic St. Louis Blues. Handy, subject, he did the composing, which is a verb, that's active again. Number 5, your generous contribution to help the homeless is greatly appreciated. Is the contribution appreciating something? No, someone else is appreciating it. Now it doesn't say who, and it doesn't need to say who. In fact, if you were to turn this into an active sentence, you would have to add something. The community greatly appreciated your generous contribution to the homeless. Something like that. Oftentimes we've got a little phrase at the end which tells us who is doing that verb, but it doesn't have to be there for a passive voice. So number 5 is passive. Number 6, the halftime show was performed by the band. There we go, there's a good example. The band did the performing, not the halftime show. So that's another passive. Now look at number 6 again. If we were to make this active, if you're writing a paper and your college professor says, you have way too much passive voice in this paper. I have had a couple of college professors point that out to me, because passive voice is a great way to add more words. It makes your writing longer. Little trick. But a good professor is going to catch it. So in this case, if you're going to make this active, you almost read it backwards. Band performed halftime show. Right? That's exactly the opposite of how it's written, and that would give you the structure for the sentence. So a clue for exercise 7, which is coming up, one way to look at it is to read it in reverse to figure out how to restructure it. Okay, then jumped ahead. Number 7 is active. Is that true? This afternoon, the baby stood. Yep, that is active. Okay, number 8, was Saul Bellow awarded the Nobel Prize? Saul Bellow is the subject. He didn't do the awarding, so this is passive. Okay, number 9, I don't understand this math problem. I am the subject. Understand is the verb, and I don't understand it, so that one's active. Number 10, Brian has been appointed captain of the team. Brian did not do the appointing. Someone else appointed him to be captain. We can presume the other team members or the coach or whatever. Either way, it's a passive voice sentence. Okay. For exercise 7, I'm not going to go through all of them because only half of them were passive voice. And the idea here was that you would identify them as active or passive and then flip the passive voice around to make it active. The idea being that the active voice is generally better, and that's true. It's a clear, better way to construct things. There are some, as you read in the blog post, there are some situations where you really need to have passive voice, but not here. So I'm only going to go over those passive voice sentences that we are flipping into the active. Okay, so beginning with number 2, which reads right now, initially 4-H clubs were joined only by farm children. Okay, this one would definitely do better if we made it in the active. It's about farm children joining 4-H clubs. So that's the order that we should have it. So initially only farm children joined 4-H clubs. Doesn't that sound a little bit better? It's a little clearer. It's a shorter sentence. We didn't need as many words. 3 and 4 are both active. Number 5, however, is passive. Completed projects are often exhibited by members at local or county fairs. Same idea here. We want the members exhibiting their projects. Now the trick here is we've got to figure out where to put at local or county fairs. You don't just leave it at the end. It's got to make sense. So it doesn't really matter where you put that phrase as long as it makes sense. Here's what I came up with, so you may have something a little bit different. I left off an S. Members exhibit completed projects at local or county fairs. Okay, 6 is active. Number 7 needs to be flipped, though. Summer camps are attended by many 4-H members. So let's just do this backwards. Many 4-H members attend summer camps. And that's what I did. Number 8, this one also needs to be flipped. Community projects are planned by our club yearly. It makes more sense to have our club yearly planning community projects or something like that. Here's what I've got. Our club plans yearly community projects. Much better sentence. Number 10, young people worldwide are helped by participation in 4-H. We could just say that participation in 4-H helps young people worldwide. Okay? So a little practice with the active and passive. If you're writing in the passive voice, make sure you have a good reason for it. And there are some reasons. If you're not sure, just try to avoid it altogether. Okay, see you next time.